Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the stencil from Brutus Monroe. This is their new stencil for January. It's from their Stencil of the Month Club. It's called Lots of Love, and it's this big heart that's full of all kinds of little tiny hearts in the middle, and it's really detailed and gorgeous, and I thought I would use it with some glitter glaze today. So I'm taking some Heather cardstock. I'm going to be doing some ink blending on this cardstock, and I'm taking two more shades of purple, which is Plum and Midnight, one being sort of a mid-tone and the other one being a nice dark purple. And I'm going to ink blend around the edges of this cardstock, and I'm going to leave the middle not ink blended so it kind of makes a spotlight type effect. I went ahead and I sped up this portion of the video just because the ink blending does take a little bit of time, and I wanted to speed this video along. So I'm taking some Plum and I'm just blending around the outsides, leaving the middle untouched like I said before. And once I get this color all blended on really nice and smooth, I'm going to go ahead and blend the edges with the Midnight, which is the darkest color of purple. Midnight is almost I would say almost a dark navy purplish, so you're really going to get this nice dark gradient when you're ink blending with three different colors. So the Heather cardstock is sort of my lightest color, Plum is my mid-tone, and then Midnight, you can see here, is the darkest color I'm adding along the edges. I really want to keep this dark color right along the edges so that it doesn't cover up too much of the rest of the ink blending. Now I'm always starting off my paper and just blending on in circular motions, just trying to make a nice smooth ink blending on my cardstock. So I'm almost done with my ink blending. I wanted to go ahead and blend out that Plum a little bit more so it wouldn't be too harsh. Just wanted to make a nice smooth blend. And now that my blending's done, putting my inks away, I cleaned up my surface and I'm adding my stencil here. Now this is actually the second background that I did. The first one turned out not exactly how I wanted it, so I went ahead and I blended another background just the same way that I showed you, and I'm putting the stencil on in a different position because I didn't quite like the look I got with my first background. You can kind of see a little bit of it there in the top left hand corner. Now I'm using my Fallen Snow Glitter Glaze, and I'm just putting some up on the stencil. Excuse me, just spreading it on really smoothly. This goes on really well. It's got a lot of glitter on it, but it's pretty smooth and creamy, so it goes on really easily, and I'm using palette knives from Brutus Monroe as well. So I'm just trying to make sure that all of my glitter glaze is kind of even, that I'm getting good coverage. You can kind of see with a stencil where you might need a little bit more or where you can scrape away some. And I'm always scraping away the extra and putting it back into my jar so that I can use it again. And this glitter glaze, once it's dry, it doesn't get glitter all over the place. The glitter stays where it is, which is a really great feature. But you do want to go ahead and clean it up right away. Usually I use a baby wipe, or I just take my tools to the sink and wash it off with some warm soapy water. And if you wash it off right away, it comes off really well. Otherwise, if it dries on, you can kind of scrape it off if you want to, but I find it's easier just to go ahead and clean it right away so that it doesn't stick. So I'm just making sure that I have all of my stencil covered with my glitter glaze and I don't have any spots that are kind of too thin or too thick. I just want an even surface of this glitter glaze. And then you can peel up your stencil and you have this beautiful stenciled background. I also like to take my finger and just kind of wipe a little way off the sides so that it makes the sides a little bit cleaner. And then I went ahead and I let my background dry overnight. And now I'm going to do some more ink blending on my card base so that my cardstock matches. And I'm taking some of that Midnight ink as well that I used on my card base. And I'm just going to ink around the sides. And that way we'll have a little bit of Midnight peeking out from behind our card front. And it's going to coordinate with the colors that I've already used. So I did go ahead and sped up this portion of the video too because it's just some more ink blending like you saw me do before. And ink blending does take a little bit of time to get a nice smooth color. You really want to keep working at it until it gets to be the way you want it. So that's why I went ahead and I sped up this portion of the video. I'm not worried about inking up the center of my card panel here because my card front is going to just layer right on the front, and you're not even going to see the middle of the card. So now that I have my card front and my card base all made, I'm just adding some Brutus Monroe foam adhesive, and I'm going to adhere this card to the front of my card base. So the backing of this paper is really super sticky, which is a good thing because it holds onto your card and makes it really nice and secure, but sometimes that backing paper can be a little bit tricky to peel off. So what I like to do is just kind of get a little bit of that peeling up with my pokey tool, and then I just peel the rest of that backing paper off. Super simple once you get the hang of it. So I'm using my Love Bug stamp set here, and I'm taking the Happy Valentine's Day sentiment, and I'm going to be embossing it with my Alabaster white embossing ink, or embossing powder, on some more of this Heather cardstock. I love that I can use cardstocks and inks just to make everything coordinate. And so I'm just adding this sentiment onto my stamp block using my Brutus Monroe embossing ink, and I'm just going to stamp this out and emboss it. I would always definitely recommend using an embossing bag before you go ahead and emboss, because that's going to really take away some static cling and just make sure that there's no fingerprints or anything on your paper once you emboss it. It's going to give you a nice clean embossing. And so I have that stamped out. You can see where the ink is. And now I'm just going to sprinkle on some of my Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. I like to use a coffee filter behind my project to catch any of that extra powder and put it back into my jar. And I'm just tapping off the extra powder and then hitting it with my heat tool to emboss. So once I had this sentiment embossed, I went ahead and I cut it down to a thinner strip so that I could layer on the front of my card. But before I went ahead and adhered it, I wanted to add a little bit more ink. Now I'm adding some more of this plum ink, and I'm mostly adding it to the top of this sentiment strip. That way I get a little bit darker color on the top and a little bit of that lighter Heather cardstock peeking down on the bottom. And it gives you more of an ombre kind of look, which I thought was really fun. So I'm just making sure I get some of that ink going on my card. And I just wanted to show you a little close-up of that sentiment strip there before I adhered it down. So my card is almost finished, but the last thing I wanted to do was add a bunch of sequins to the front of my card so that I could really get a lot of shimmer and shine going. You have all that glitter in the glitter paste, and I thought it would be fun to add some more shine and shimmer with all of these sequins. So I'm picking out some sequins from a sequin mix from Dress My Craft. I have some of these big clear ones and some of these middle-sized, sort of a pinkish color that really coordinated well with my card and my inks. And I'm just arranging them all on my card. And then I'm going to take some of my Nouveau crystal sequins. These are smaller, but they're clear, and I just wanted to put a bunch of them onto my card. So I dumped a few out there, and then I ended up knocking over the bottle and dumping a whole bunch more out, but at least they fell onto my desk, so I didn't waste any. And then I picked them up, put them back into my bottle so I could use them again later. And then I'm adhering all these sequins down with a little bit of glossy accents. I have my glossy accents in a little squeeze bottle with a fine tip applicator, which I think works really well for using glossy accents with little sequins or adding just a little bit to some different images and things. So once all my sequins are adhered down, that finishes the card. So thanks so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoyed it and it gives you some ideas. I'll have some photos at the end. I'll have some links down below for the products that I've used. Otherwise, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and I will see you guys later. Bye!